Hi, Business Essential students. Okay, so today is Monday. I'm like getting my days all mixed up, so I'm sure you are too. It's Monday, April 13th, and today we are going to be jumping into types of ownership, types of business ownership, and we're also going to talk about different types of businesses and the functions of those businesses. And so that's going to be our instruction today. Most of you were not able to Zoom in or forgot about the Zoom or whatever, so that's why I'm recording this so that you have that option. And I am going to use some visual aids to help me today, so bear with me as I fumble around a little bit. But our goal today is to, number one, for me to go through the content, and then number two, for me to explain your assignments for the week, and then if you hang on till the end, I have an extra credit opportunity for you as well. And it might have to do with what I'm wearing on my head, so stay tuned for that. But first and foremost, let's jump into our text, which I know you guys don't have on you, but hopefully through my explanation of it here, you will gain some knowledge there as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about are types of ownership. So when you're a business owner, there's actually different types of ownership that you can choose to take part in. And so if you come up with a great business idea or something that you want to start on your own, there are kind of three main types of business ownership. The first one we call sole proprietorship. That's sole, S-O-L-E, meaning one. Okay, and just like in its name, it means that it has one owner, or it's owned by one person. Okay, so it's a sole proprietor. And this is actually the greatest percentage of small businesses are sole proprietors. And I'm going to show you some statistics here in a moment. The second type of business that we're going to talk about is a partnership. So it's very similar to a sole proprietorship, except for instead of doing it on your own, you're doing it with two or more people that are shared in that ownership. Basically a partnership could be 2 people, it could be 20 people. It just depends on how many you want to share in the ownership of the business. And then finally, the third of the main types, we went through sole proprietorship and partnership. The third of the main types is a corporation. And that's probably the one that we've heard the most often just because it's usually your big businesses. As well as there are some small businesses that are corporations, but your big businesses, the ones that we've all heard of, Walmart and Microsoft and Target and Amazon, these are all giant corporations. And so because these are things that kind of help us with our daily lives, we're familiar with them, and that's common terminology. So we're going to get into the ins and outs of those because you could be a small business and still have a corporation. And a lot of people don't understand that when they're getting started in this instruction. So we're going to go through that. But before we go through each one individually and talk about the pros and the cons, I want to show you this little visual that I created. So ownership types, and I kind of used a visual to kind of help us understand them. The circle represents the owner, and then the dot represents the business. So if it's a sole proprietorship, there's one circle, and the business is completely owned and run by that one person. That's a sole proprietorship. And remember, this is a majority of the businesses that are small businesses in the United States. 72%. That's a huge percentage. Okay. Then you get down to your partnership, which was the second one we talked about. So we've got 2 circles because they're both sharing in the business and they're overlapping around the business because that's something that they share. They share the liability. And we'll get into what that word means here in a moment, liability. And then down here we have corporation. Sorry, I'm trying to remove the light from the background. Corporation. So you've got the business person, the owner, and they're just kind of barely touching the business. They're still in charge of the business. They still run the business. But as far as their liability, it's limited. And so these pictures are kind of good visuals. And you'll notice that 20% of small businesses are corporations. So we got 72%, 20%, 5%. If you're good with math, there's about 3% left over. And all that means is that there are some other, types of businesses that exist out there. And that would be kind of the remaining 3% because almost all of them fall into these categories. And that's why these are the 3 that we mainly talk about. So those are the types of business ownership. So now that we kind of know what they are, let's talk about the word that I kept saying. Liability. Liability means that you are liable or responsible for the business. So in a sole proprietorship, you have 100% liability, meaning if something happens bad with the business and you run out of money, then you personally, as the owner, have to take on the responsibility of running out of that money and taking care of any fees or loans or anything like that solely. 100% on you. If you're in a partnership, you kind of split that among the partners based on your level of ownership. So whether that's 50-50, you both own, half, or maybe it's a 60-40 relationship, or maybe it's a 70-30 relationship, or a 20-80, whatever that relationship is, that, the liability, the responsibility is spread out among those partners. And then in a corporation, here's the fun part. In a corporation, you have limited liability, very little liability, because usually stockholders and other owners of the business itself help to recoup that money rather than it just being on you. So even just by understanding what liability means, we're already starting to understand what some of the advantages and disadvantages would be of each. So in a sole proprietorship, starting it up, advantage, it's really easy to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of work. There might be some local laws and things that you have to kind of make sure that you're working into with licenses and permits and stuff like that. But aside from that, it doesn't take a whole lot of work to start up a business compared to the other options. Okay, they get to make all of the decisions, so that's usually a positive, because a lot of people that go into small business, it's because they want to work for themselves, and so making all of their own decisions is a huge benefit. They get to run the company as they see fit, and they also get to keep all the profits. So even though we think about liability generally meaning a negative thing, and also if you're 100% liable for your business, all the good that comes to your business, you also get to take part in all of that. So that's kind of some of the benefits of being a sole proprietorship. But to every good, there is a negative. And so some of the, downsides of a sole proprietorship are that your company, if you lose the money, you lose it all. A lot of times you can feel alone and like you don't have help because guess what? You're a sole proprietorship. And so oftentimes that's kind of true. Any of the company's debts and stuff, that's all on you personally as well. A lot of times your income level is going to be determined on how good or badly your business is doing. And so that could be good, but that also can be uncertain, and that can be a difficulty for a lot of sole proprietorships. A lot of times creditors and people who give business loans are nervous to give them to a sole proprietor because that is a sole responsibility of them. And so giving that over to one person to pay back that loan can be a little bit risky on the bank side. And so sometimes they're a little hesitant to do that unless their business model is 100% on board and looks like it's going to be super successful. But that's sometimes hard for a startup to be able to establish. So gaining that financial piece that's needed for a lot of new small businesses can be really difficult. So those are some of the positives and negatives of sole proprietorship. Positives, you can benefit from all the profits if you make them. You get to run the business yourself and do things that are beneficial to yourself and your business as you see fit. On the negative side, you also have 100% of the liability and responsibility. So if things don't go well and you're not making profits, that hurts you personally and only you. Also, it could be uncertain income, if any income, and a lot of times it's hard to gain that financing. So that's the good and the bad. Partnerships, okay, very, very similar to sole proprietorships. In fact, all the advantages and all the disadvantages are pretty much the same, except for when it comes to 100% profits and 100% responsibility to pay back debts, you share that with your partner. Okay, so you still have the somewhat uncertain income, you still have the, possibility of being alone, still making your own decisions, but now you got to share that with somebody else. And so even though, yes, you and that partner still might be making all of the decisions, you still have to give in to that partner at times. It's very unlikely that you and that partner are always going to think exactly the same. And so maybe how you guys go forward in that business is going to be determined on some kind of agreement that you've come to with your partner. And so you want to choose those partners wisely, because when you're working in a business like this with somebody else, you have to think about their needs and their desires and their wants. But at the same time, it's nice to have somebody to springboard back off of, and you maybe to share strengths, maybe something that you're weak in, they're strong in, or something like that. So choosing those business partners wisely is extremely important. And then we get to the corporations. Okay, a corporation is a company that is registered by a state and operates apart from its owners. And to form the corporation, the owners must get a corporate charter. So this is something that you'd have to do at the state level, get a corporate charter. And this is based on where your main headquarters of your business is. So if you're running it from your home and you're doing an online business, then it would be in your home state that you would obtain this charter from. It's a little bit easier typically to raise money. And sometimes the owners of a corporation can sell stock in their company in order to gain funds for use for business decisions and things that go forward with the business. A lot of times this company, actually it's a requirement that this type of a company, a corporation, would have a board of directors. So you'd have to get other people's input on it. And so although you've got all these, new inputs and you have this way of obtaining funding maybe a little bit easier, just like with a partnership and a sole proprietor, there are advantages and disadvantages. So some of the major advantages are that a corporation has limited liability. Okay, so you're not going to be held more accountable as an owner of a corporation than whatever you put into the business. So if you personally got a business loan and it was for $10,000, then that's all you're going to be responsible for. Anything that was used from the investors or people who bought stocks into your company, they're the ones that are going to lose out. Now, they're going to also be breathing down your neck and hoping that your business is running well and wanting you to profit, because if you profit, they profit, and hopefully you want your business to do well as well. But as far as the responsibility and the stress that might come with, money that you put in of your own and the effects of other people, this might be the way to go. Another advantage is that because you have people buying stocks in your company, you can get funding and stuff to do business things much easier than you could in the other formats. Third advantage is that a corporation does not end until the owner dies. And if that were to happen, basically what would take place is that they would sell off the owner's shares and the business would continue. So, it does not end when the owner dies. So if an owner dies and it's a sole proprietorship, the business is over. In a partnership, the partner might take it over and continue to run it, but whatever that other person put in, there's probably some way that that's laid out in their will and how that's going to go down and things like that. But then finally, when it comes to a corporation, if the owner dies, their shares are sold off, and then the company still continues and can still continue. So if you think about Apple, and we know that Steve Jobs is no longer alive, Apple didn't just stop. It's continued to go because his shares were sold off, and then the company has continued to advance. And they continue to do things very similarly maybe to the way Steve Jobs would have wanted it, but it's still a continuing company, and he is no longer personally in the picture or physically in the picture. So some disadvantages to a corporation. Okay, a corporation, they have to pay taxes on their income. Okay, and the stockholders also have to pay taxes on profit. So what we call this is called double taxation. So when you're in a corporation, the government kind of gets its piece of the pie twice. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of people stick with sole proprietorship so that they can really reap the rewards and benefits from their own work. However, in a corporation, the government's going to get its piece of the pie. The government also regulates these businesses a lot more strictly, because oftentimes they deal with a lot more employees and other factors as well. And there are a lot of different types of corporations, so staying on top of the different types and the types that will work best with your business can be a little difficult. So those are the three main types. We talked about kind of what they look like in an ownership style and the advantages and disadvantages. As you read through your homework assignment on P&G, which is also known as Procter & Gamble, what you're going to get to see is a company that actually got to be all of those types at different points throughout the process of their company. And so if you don't know what Procter & Gamble is yet, or P&G, as they're more often referred to as, if you just look around your house, I promise you have products that are probably P&G products. If you think about certain types of detergents like Tide and Gain, they're from P&G headquarters. If you look at your cabinets where you've got some foods and things like that, if you see Pringles or other kinds of snacky foods, a lot of those are P&G headquartered products. You can also see like your cleaning products like Swiffer. That was also a Procter & Gamble product. The Mr. Clean little sponges, Procter & Gamble products. So all of those things are Procter & Gamble products. We have them all around us, but this actually started as a much different business with candle making and soap making back like 200 years ago. So you're going to get to read about this company, and you're going to get to learn about how they worked through the different processes of different business types, and how they are now a global leader in business. So it's a really interesting story. I hope you enjoy the article and answer the questions as an easy assignment. But that's your first assignment for the week. Now we're going to move into the second little aspect here, your second assignment. And that is all about, sorry, I blanked for a moment. Your second assignment is your choice board. So your first assignment has to do with our instruction that we went over today. Your second assignment is all about the choice boards. So make sure you get your choice in for what you want to do, and the email that I'm going to send you, or that had this video link in it, also has the link to quizzes, if that's, or not quizzes, sorry, Quizlet, if that's the option that you're choosing for this week to do. So, we went through the instruction. We've talked about your assignments for the week. You got the article on P&G where there are some questions to answer, and then your choice board for the week. And those are your two assignments due Friday by 5 o'clock. And then now, why am I wearing this hat? Because according to our school, we are having a virtual spirit week. So today, Monday, is hat day. If you see this video today and want to send me a picture of yourself wearing a hat, I will grant you 3 extra credit points, and I will do 3 extra credit points for each day of the Spirit Week, as long as you send me the picture of you doing that daily task on that day. And I will track those and add those in at the end of the week. So that's a fun way for you to get some extra points. If you do it all 5 days, it's 15 points. It basically replaces an assignment, or it could just add to your grade, which would be a great benefit for everyone. So today is hat day, Monday. Tomorrow is shades day. So wear your sunglasses. I was going to grab mine, but I decided, yeah, you don't need me to do that. Wednesday is game day, so wear your favorite sports team shirt or jersey. And then Thursday is Buffalo Day. That should be easy. Get a Buffalo shirt and put it on. Prairie View Pride. And then finally Friday is Comfy PJ Day, which maybe some of you are doing every day anyway. So this would just be a good way to get some extra points. And so best of luck to you on that. Send me those pictures on the day, doing what the daily task is, via either email or my Google Voice number, which is 913-795-1215, and have a great week. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Thanks.